This time we have a thing. Soma, konja wait panunga. Soma is sorry. Soma is coming, Srini. Okay.
Sorry, we are live now. We'll get started. We'll be shy.
Continue, please. Go ahead. Continue.
Namaskara, Soma.
Namaskaram. Namaskaram.
शारदे पाहि मां शङ्कर रक्ष मां 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 शारदे पाहि मां शङ्कर रक्ष मां
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sharada Sharada Bhoja Vadana Vadana Bhuje Sarvada Sarvada Smakam Sannidhim Kriyat Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ajnanam Jhannavi Tirtham Vidya Tirtham Vivekinam सर्वेषां सुखदं तीर्थं भारती तीर्थमाश्रये विद्या विनय संपन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदांत तत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखर भारती Sadguru Charanarvindabhyam Namaha. Namaste everyone. So we are continuing our journey on Dharma Shastra, the Nyaya Shastra series. I hereby invite Dr. Jambunathan to start this lecture. So there will be a little small swap of space right now. So I'm very happy and thrilled to have Dr. Jambunathan as our guest, and I'm very honored. So I'm asking Dr. Jambunathan to continue from here. Thank you.
Namaskaram to everybody. Thank you, Padmanabhan ji, for hosting me in the house as well as the lecture. Om Shuklam Bardharam Vishtam Shasivaram Sadurбhujam Prasannavathanam Dhyayet Sarvighnopashante Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parambrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vyasam Ashtunaptaram Shakte Pautramagalmasham Parasrat Madhavande Sugatatam Tabonidim Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. So we'll continue on the Manusmriti, but traditionally we have to talk a little bit about Veda Vyasa today, because we think Guru Purnima is also called Vyasa Purnima, and so we are just a few minutes, all of you know much, but we have to honor Veda Vyasa on this day. We are doing all pujas for him, but we also have to recollect his literary contributions and his role in Sanatana Dharma. As you know, Veda Vyasa is the name suggests Vyasam Vashishta Naptaram Shaktre Pautra Magalmasham Parasarat Midam Mande Sukadatum Taponidim Vashishta, Shakta, Parasara, Vyasa, Shuka. Those are the lineage, and only after Shuka, Gaudapadacharya, Govindapadacharya, and Shankaracharya comes. So it was a father-son lineage till Shukacharya, and from Shukacharya, the father-son lineage gets broken, and Shukacharya gives Upadesham to Gaudapadacharya, and from that we have the rest of the Guru Parampara till now. So, Vyasa is one of the leading gurus, and even for all the mother gurus, like including Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, they have to get some kind of stamp of approval from Veda Vyasa before they can, establish their mutt. And if you will see one way or the other, Ramanujacharya himself establishes his Vishishta Veda Sampradaya, Sampradaya purely based on the Sri Bhashyam he authors on Veda Vyasa's Brahma Sutra. So he uses the Brahma Sutra composed by Veda Vyasa to establish his Vishishta Advaita philosophy. And if you know Shankaracharya's story, there is a debate which happens between Shankaracharya himself and Veda Vyasa in Kashi. If you read the Shankara Vijayam, Veda Vyasa comes as a very elderly person, disguised, and Shankaracharya is just 16 years old. And the debate fierce because Adi Shankara has just composed his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So Veda Vyasa is attacking Adi Shankara with different questions from different angles to see whether Shankaracharya has got the message of Brahma Sutra correctly. And the debate goes on, and both of them are mighty intellectuals. And Padmapada Acharya is the one who intervenes and says he realizes Keshavam Badarayanam, Shankaram Shankaracharya, and that he will say, oh, Badarayana, you are rightly Keshava himself, and Shankaracharya, you are Shankara himself. If Keshava and Shankara debate, how can ordinary people like us survive? That's the word Padmapada used. And that's when Veda Vyasa accepts that Shankaracharya's Bhashya is very in tune with what he has mentioned in his Brahma Sutra. So Adi Shankara gets a stamp of authority from Veda Vyasa in Kashi, that his Brahma Sutra Bhashya is very much in tune with what the philosophy Veda Vyasa has wanted to spread. And same thing, Ramanujacharya has to get the blessings of Saraswati. Saraswati Devi himself comes and tells, yes, you are in tune. The Veda Vyasa doesn't come and tell you are in tune with Veda Vyasa. Saraswati has to come and give the authorization for, this is called Sri Bhashyam, which is the Brahma Sutra Bhashya authored by Ramanujacharya on Veda Vyasa's Brahma Sutra. And Madhvacharya, if you read the Madhvacharya story, there will be a period when Madhvacharya leaves Udupi and actually goes to the Badri all the way to North India. And according to the Madhvacharya history, there is a conversation like similar to what happens between Shankara and Badarayana. There is a conversation that happens between Madhva and Badarayana. So Madhva also comes and claims that he also got the stamp of approval from Veda Vyasa. So basically, whether you are a Shankara follower, Ramanuja follower, Madhva follower, they all come and say that we are telling Veda Vyasa's message. So Veda Vyasa is such a critical figure. And, Veda Vyasa, as you know, was the one who divided the Vedas, for ease of Rig, Sama, Atharvana, Yajur, and he had Paila Maharishi, Vaisampayana, Sumantu, and Jaimini Maharishi to spread the four Vedas. Jaimini for Sama Veda, Vaishampayana for Atharva Veda, Paila for Rig Veda, and Sumantu for Atharva Veda. So those were how we divided the Vedas. And then he authored the 18 Puranas. And you know, from the Puranas, he gave it to Sutta Maharishi to propagate the Puranas, except Bhagavata Purana, which used his own son Shuka to propagate. And then the Brahma Sutra, what he authored, which was kind of, you know, established by all the mother gurus, the Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, and before that there was Bodhayana Maharishi. So he had a lineage for the Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, and he also had the Mahabharata. And if you remember the Mahabharata, the whole conversation starts between Janmejayan and Vaishampayana. Janmejayan is doing the Sarpa Yagya, and Vaishampayana is one of the, who is the direct disciple of Vedavyasa, who is sitting in the Sarpa Yagya conducted by Janmejayan. And Janmejayan asks the story of his ancestors, and that's how the Vaishampayana begins to narrate the Mahabharata. So you will see that he uses Vaishampayana to propagate the Mahabharata. So basically, not only Vedavyasa established all these scriptures, but he also established his disciples to propagate them down the future. So it is not only important to compose the scriptures, but you have to have a tradition to maintain them. So there was a great service which Vedavyasa did for all of us. And I just want to bring two small anecdotes, one about Vedavyasa and one about Shankaracharya, and how they encourage their disciples. You know, Jaimini Maharishi is one of the disciples of Vedavyasa, who is the propagator of Samaveda. And Jaimini Maharishi is a very big proponent of Purvamimamsa, which is during the Vedic rituals. Whereas Vedavyasa is a big proponent of Vedanta, which is the Jnanakanda part of the Veda. They were not completely opposed to each other, but the importance, Vedavyasa was more focused on the Vedanta part, and Jaimini Maharishi was more focused on the Purva Kanda, which is the Karma Kanda part. And you will be amazed that how many times Vedavyasa quotes his own disciple, because Jaimini has established very nice criteria how to interpret Vedic scriptures in the Mimamsa. So because if you have to, like we have a dictionary or something to understand the regular meaning and sentences and stuff, the grammar, we have some grammar. So the Vedas has to be interpreted only according to the principles of Mimamsa. And Jaimini Maharishi codifies those principles very well, how to interpret the Vedic sentences. And you'll be amazed to see in the Brahma Sutra how many times Vedavyasa quotes his own Shishya. According to Jaimini, he will tell that. So we can see that even though Jaimini was his disciple, he had no hesitation in promoting that according to my disciple, this is the right thing. So that is just the the generosity of Vedavyasa. The second thing is same thing if we come to Shankaracharya's story about Padmapada. Padmapada authors the Panchapadika, which is the Bhashya on Adi Shankara, which is another commentary on Adi Shankara's Brahma Sutra Bhashya. And there was a story which goes, and Padmapada has actually explained to Shankaracharya or gave his book for Shankaracharya to read, and then he gets the book back, and somebody who is jealous of Padmapada actually burns the book. So the whole commentary written by Padmapada is get burned, and Padmapada is very upset, and he comes to Shankaracharya and tells him that the whole book is burnt. What should I do? Shankaracharya tells to Padmapada, don't worry, I have memorized whatever you have told me, I will tell you, write it back. So that was the importance. See the importance of the disciples' work. The Guru gives so much importance to the disciples' work that he has memorized the disciples' work so that the Guru can again say it back to the disciple to, get the book back. So those are some examples of how the Gurus were not only very knowledgeable, how they were very generous in terms of, getting their disciples uplifted and, giving the right name for them. Today, we see people trying to suppress one another, and we can see the, the greatness of these Gurus, not only in, their intellectual capacity, but also their generosity. And so that is with that a brief talk about our Gurus on this day. We need to talk about the Gurus and Guru Purnima. So just talk a little bit about Vedavyasa and Shankaracharya there. So we'll start with our Manusmriti. And I'm going to start from sloka number 170. Like I say, we'll do for about 30-40 minutes, and then Padmanabhan Ji will continue it. I'm going to start with just finish with sloka 169. I will just read that sloka again. Matur agre adijananam, dvitiyam maunji bandhane, tritiyam yajnadikshayam, vijashya shrudi sodana. So it says Matur agre adijananam. The first birth is from mother. Dvitiyam maunji bandhane. The second birth comes after you tie the maunji bandhanam, which is the time of your Upanayana. Basically, the maunji bandhanam, the dandam, and the Yajnobhavitam, they all come together during your Upanayana ceremony. So when the maunji bandhanam means indirectly when you get your sacred thread ceremony, that is when you have a second birth. Tritiyam yajnadikshayam. And once you have learned the Vedas and you can perform the Vedic yajnas, you get diksha for performing those yajnas. That is your third birth. And that is only Dvijasya Shuddhi. This is how a Dvija develops. which means we call them twice born. Again, it is actually thrice born if you include the Yajna Dikshayam, but we call them the twice born is of these things. You're born from the mother, then you get the sacred ceremony, and third, you get the Yajna Diksha. That's one, a Dvija is growing. That's what it says here. So that was the last sloka, sloka number 169. So we'll start from sloka number 170. Tatra yad brahma janmasya maunji bandhana shinnitam tatra asya mata savitri pitatu acharya uchyate. Tatra yad brahma janmasya maunji bandhana shinnitam tatra asya mata savitri pitatu acharya uchyate. So it says for a brahma janma, which means you can call it as brahmana janma, or for a janma to attain brahma jnanam. You can take it either way. Brahma janma is to become a brahmana or to become a knower of Brahman. The Maunji Bandhanam is actually the birth. Maunji Bandhana Chinnitam. So when you get the Upanayam, is only your actual birth. That's what it says. And for that person who has attained the Maunji Bandhanam, Tatra Asya Mata Savitri Pitatu Acharya Uchyate. The mother is actually Savitri, which is the mantra which you're going to be chanting, or you're going to be meditating on that mantra. And Acharya, your Acharya becomes your father. But in olden days, remember, the father himself was the one who, for most of us too, it's your father who gave you the Gayatri Upadesa. But in some families, when the father is not there or something, then a priest or somebody, another highly learned person will come and give you the Upadesa. So the Mata is the Savitri mantra itself is your mother. And the Acharya who gives you that mantra Upadesha is the Pita, is the father. So the Maunji Mandhanam is the birth. The Savitri is the mother. And the Acharya who gives the mantra is the Pita. So that is the thing. And on the same token, it's important, like, the sannyasis worship Veda Vyasa on the Guru Purnima day, and all the brahmacharis and grahasthas, they worship Veda Vyasa on a Ramani Avatam day. If you remember, after you have gotten the new change of your sacred thread, you have to do the Vyasa Puja, and you put you invoke all the rishis and do all the homa there. So the Vyasa Puja is done on the Avani Avitam day, which is Shravana Purnima, whatever it is, that Upakarma day. That's when you do the Veda Vyasa Puja. So that is when brahmacharis and grahasthas do the puja for Veda Vyasa. The sannyasis all do the puja for Veda Vyasa on today's day, which is the Guru Purnima day. So that is something to keep in mind. And just as another side point, if you want to know the seniority of a sannyasa, how do you decide which sannyasi is senior? Let's say there is a sannyasi who is 45 years old, and there is a sannyasi who is 81 years old. How do you decide which one is the senior sannyasi? You actually count how much Vyasa Pujas they have done. So let's say this 45-year-old got his sannyasa at 18 years old, and he's been doing every Chaturmasya Vrata and Vyasa Puja for 27 years. And let's say the 81-year-old got his sannyasa only at 60 years old. He has been doing the Vyasa Puja only for 21 years. So the 45-year-old becomes the senior for the 81-year-old in sannyasi. So it all counts upon how many Vyasa Pujas you have done in your lifetime. So this is which is every Guru Purnima Puja. So the one who has done the maximum number of Guru Purnima Pujas, even if he is younger, he becomes a senior sannyasi. So that is something to remember in terms of how to determine which sannyasi is senior or not. Next point is 171. Veda Pradhanat Acharyam Pitaram Parichakshate Nahasmin Yujyate Karma Kinchida Maunji Bandhanat. Veda Pradhanat Acharyam Pitaram Parichakshate Nahasmin Yujyate Karma Kinchida Maunji Bandhanat. So why do we call the person who gives you the Veda? He's the one should be, he's the Pradhana Acharya who gives you the Veda is the one should be considered the real father, because he is the one who is going to uplift you from this material bondage by giving you the Vedic knowledge. So that is why the person who gives you the Vedic knowledge is considered to be the father. And it also says Kinchita Karma Kinchita Maunji Bandhanat means Nahasmin. Till you attain the Maunji Bandhanam. Again, the Maunji Bandhanam is a symbol for Upanayanam. The Dandam which you carry, the Maunji Bandhanam is the Mekala which you wear around your girdle, and then the Yaggomitam is across your chest. Only the person who has acquired these three is capable of doing any karmas. So if you don't have these, the Maunji Bandhanam and the Upanayanam, you are not considered eligible for doing karmas. That's what Manu is telling here. Na Yasmin Karma Kinchida, even small karmas is not eligible to do. But he is going to give only one exception in the next sloka. So there is one exception to this rule. one who has not attained Upanayana, can he tell any Vedic mantras? Is there an exception? He's going to tell in the next sloka. Na abhi vyaharayet brahma svada ninaya nadrute shudreni samstavat yavad vedena jayate. Na abhi vyaharayet brahma swada ninaya nadrute shudreni samastavat yavat vedena jayate. So the last line says shudrena samastavat yavat vedena jayate. One who is not attained a Vedic birth, which is getting the Upanayana and then learning the Vedas, one who has not attained this is considered only equal to a Shudra. That's why he says Janmanasya Shudra for everybody. Everybody is Shudra at birth. Only by getting this karmas or samskaras, you become a Brahmana. So according to there is a sloka itself which says everybody is a Shudra at birth. Only after attaining these karmas, you become a Brahmana and other thing. That's what the last line says. So because you're equal to Shudra before, but the first line says Na abhi vaharayet brahma swada ninaya nadrute. Swata ninaya means the Shraddha karmas. Swada means because you use swada during Pitru karmas and use swaha during Deva karmas, because one is called Kavya Vahana, one is called Havya Vahana. When you're giving the offerings to your Pitrus, you use the matas, use the mantra, you swada, and the Agni in the form of Kavya Vahana gives it to the Pitrus. And when you're giving to the Devas, use the word Swaha, and we call Havya Vahana gives it to the Deva. So they're just the two forms of Agni, Kavya Vahana, Havya Vahana, depending upon whatever job he does. It is more of his job, professional description. If he is giving it to Pitras, he becomes Kavya Vahana. If he gives it to the Devas, it becomes Havya Vahana. And so Swada. So let's say you have a 7-year-old boy in your home, Brahmin boy, but he is still not attained Upanayana. But for some reason, he is the only available person to chant Shraddha mantras. You can use him and he can tell the Swada mantras, which is the Pitru Karma mantras. He is eligible to chant. That is the only exception. Again, the way you have to take it is the importance given to Pitru Karma. So you cannot say, I don't have a priest, that's why I can't do Vedic Karma. So even if you are a younger boy, a Brahmin boy, you don't have Upanayanam, the Vedas give the exception, and Manu is mentioning that exception. The Swada can be chanted, the Swada mantras can be chanted by a brahmachari who has not attained Upanayana yet. So there is one exception very clearly he mentions, thereby stressing how Pitru Karmas are even more important than Deva Karmas. So that is the thing. And now comes the sloka number 173. Krito upanayas yasya vrada adeshanam ishyate brahmano grahanam chaiva kramena vidhi purvakam. Krito upanayas yasya vrato adeshanam ishyate brahmano grahanam chaiva kramena vidhi purvakam. So basically it says Krito Upanayana means after the Upanayana Krita has happened, Vrada Adeshana Mishyate. He becomes eligible to get to do vratas. There are so many vratas. If you go through when you do the Vedic studies, there is the chanting of the Vedas is one, but there is certain vratas he has to do in between. So he becomes eligible to learn all about the vratas also. And Grahanam Chaiva Kramena Vidhi Purvakam means step by step. He can start learning all the things related to become closer to Brahman. So whatever takes you closer to Brahman, all those studies, he becomes eligible step by step after that. So after the Upanayanam only, first of all, you become eligible to learn about all the vratas, and step by step, you can Grahanam Kramena. Kramena means you go step by step in a particular order to learn all what is related to Brahman. Sloka number 174. Yat yasya vihitam karma yat shutram yacha mekala yat yasya vihitam charma yat shutram yacha mekala yo dando yascha vasanam tad tadasya vrateshvapi yat yasya vihitam charma yat sutram yacha mekala yo dando yascha vasanam tad tadasya vrateshvapi. So he says charma is the skin. There is deer skin. We talked about that in our previous lokas. There is a skin for the Brahmana, skin for the Kshatriya, skin for the Vaishya, goat skin, all that skin. The Krishnarjuna, which is the black antelope skin, is what is recommended for the Brahmana. So you have to have that skin somehow attached to either to your Yajnapavitam, or you should wear it something like that. So the charma, sutram is actually the yajñopavitam. The mekala is the girdle which runs around your waist. That is the something similar to Uddiyanam, but that's what the Maunji Bandhanam. Dandam is the stick which you carry. And again, we saw in previous lokas how different types of dandam for a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. There is also, Manu gives the height of this dandam. Everything is described there. And Yacha Vasanam is here, not Vasanam, not Vachanam. Vasanam is again the covering which they use, like like their dhoti, something like that. It's their, the covering what they use for themselves. So all these, the sutram, the charma, the mekala, the danda, should also be exactly the same when you're doing vratams. So which means there are different vratams which Manu will be describing later. So not only during your Upanayana ceremony and other things, but when you're performing vratam too, depending upon whether Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they should be using the same kind of the ornaments and their coverings in the same manner. So the same rules apply. That's what he says. Whatever I have already told before for the charma, sutram, mekala, dandam, everything, the same rules apply according to whether a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, it says. So, sloka number 175. Sevetai mamstu niyaman brahmachari guru vasan sanniyamendriya gramam tapo vridyartam atmana. Sevetai mamstu niyaman brahmachari guru vasan sanniyamendriya gramam tapo vridyartam atmana. So it says tapo vridyartam means for the multiplication of his taba, vriddhi. Vriddhi is growth. For the multiplication of taba, which is going for his own self. So for the brahmachari who wants to get his tapas multiplied, his penance multiplied, what and all he should do? Sevetai mamstu niyaman brahmachari guru vasan. You should first listen to whatever you should do seva to his guru, which was even Krishna says, Pariprashnena sevya, very famous line in the 4th chapter of Gita. So do seva to your guru and then listen to what your guru says. And then he also adds Sanniyam Mendriya Gramam. San Niyam Indriya Gramam. Control all your indriyas. Your karma indriyas, jnana indriyas, don't let them outward, control them. So for the brahmachari who wants his tapas to be multiplied, he should follow these rules. Serve the guru, follow the guru's words, and control your senses. So that's what Manu is telling there. Sloka number 176. Nityam snatva shushihi kuryat devarishi pitru tarpanam devatabhi archanam chaiva samidadanam evacha. Nityam snatva shushihi kuryat devarishi pitru tarpanam devata abhyarchanam chaiva samidadanam evacha. So he says daily the brahmachari should take a bath to purify himself. Snatva shuchihi. So the bath should purify himself. And then after that, you should do Deva Rishi Pitru Tarpanam. There is the Brahma Yajnam. When you do that, the Deva Rishi Pitru Tarpanam comes. And the Acharyas say the Pitrus which is mentioned in the Deva Rishi Pitru Tarpanam is not really your 3 ancestors, not your Pitru, Pitamaha, Pravitamaha and all. It is the Pitrus who have even long term come from the Rishis and other things. So that's why the Brahma Yajnam, some people tell even the Pitru Tarpanam can be done for people who have fathers. Because this is not the Pitru Tarpanam, which is normally done in Amavasya or Masha Shankaramana times, which is done for people who are fathers are dead and they have to do it. So the Brahmachari, that's why this Devarshi Pitru Tarpanam comes, because there is a Brahma Yajnam Pitru Tarpanam is mentioned, and that Pitrus are more ancestral Pitrus, and so people who have their fathers are eligible to do that. That's why the statement comes here. And after doing the Devarshi Pitru Tarpanam, Devatabhi Archanam, you should also do special pujas. We have the Panchayatana puja, or some people do, what is that, the Shri Chakra puja, whatever the pujas, you should worship the Devatas. And then you should do Samida Danam, very, very important, it says. And I should tell, we are very thankful for my grandfather and all. Till I went to medical school in 17, he will enforce the Samida Danam rule. Whenever I spent a few years in Chennai because my father was getting transferred back and forth. My grandfather is a very strict adherent. He has cows in his house. The cows will give cow dung every day. You will have the servants make the Bharati, which is the dried cow dung. And then every day he will get the summits from the Arasamaram. He will have people who will get it. My grandfather was not only Vedic, he was also very rich. So he had powers to do that. So we will have all the grandsons have to do Samhidadanam every day. He will enforce it personally. So I think the Samhidadanam only is giving me some knowledge right now. I should tell because ette yagne varchastena aham varchasvi bhuyasam, ette yagne tejasta aham tejasvi bhuyasam, ette yagne harastena aham harasvi bhuyasam. Those things, those mantras will come in Samhidanam, and people keep telling those mantras, their Meda Shakti, everything will keep growing. So that is a very important thing. If you see, Manu is insisting that they should do Samhidanam. And so those are the initial things for the brahmachari. Next, Varjayantu Varjayen Madhumamsam cha Gandham Malyam Rasan Striyaham Shuptani Yani Sarvani Praninam Chaiva Himsinam. So now he is telling what the things to avoid. He told before what and all things he has to do. Listen to your guru, serve your guru, control your indriyas, take a bath, do the Devarshi Pitru Tarpanam, do the Archana for the Devatas, then do Samhidanam. He told all the do's. Now he is telling the don'ts. Varjayan means avoid these things. Varjayan Madhu Mamsam cha Gandham Malyam Rasan Striyaha Shuptani Yani Sarvani Praninam Chaiva Himsinam. So the last line is Praninam Chaiva Himsinam means avoid any himsa to any creatures. It doesn't only say humans, avoid himsa to any creatures, it says. And that's why Mahaprabhu will tell, when people talk about, serving humanity, but they are eating all kinds of animals in their food, he says, our Vedas tell not only serving humanity, you have to serve all creations. So basically that is, if you're killing animals on one page and then talking about service to humanity, he says it doesn't make sense. It's not congruent, he will use the word. So basically, it clearly says Praninam Chaiva Himsinam means all creatures. It doesn't say Manushanam Chaiva Himsinam. So the word is very broadly used by Manu, telling that you should not do any himsa to any prani. And these also avoid mamsam, the meat. Madhu means again, madhu means you can take liquor, or also some people take honey, even honey. Gandham, all the scented things. Malya is all the flowers. Rasan here means all the flavored food. Striya is woman. Shuptani is actually the fermented food. Foods are there. So those and all should be avoided by the brahmachari. So those are things he says: the meat, the honey or the liquor, and the scented fragments, then the flowers, the very flavored foods, women. All of these things should be avoided by the brahmachari, he says. So sloka number 178. Abhyanga manjanam cha akshnor rupan chatradharanam kamam krodam cha lobam cha nardanam geetavadanam. Abhyanga manjanam cha akshnor rupan chatradharanam kamam krodam cha lobam cha nardanam geetavadanam. So you probably can interpret most of the slogan yourself. Abhyanga manjanam means oil bath. So basically oil bath is considered luxury. So oil bath or shampoo bath, whatever it is. So Abhyanga Manjanam should be avoided. So because in olden days in your family and our younger days, we used to take oil bath. Our family will specifically choose a day and they will have to do oil bath on those days. So it says brahmachari should actually avoid Abhyanga Manjanam. Cha akshnor rupan, which means they can even make their eyes, the eyelids beautiful. Even not only women, even men are allowed to do dressing of their eyelids to make the eyelids beautiful. So those, the Mayit, they say that. So those things you should avoid. Chatradharana means you should not carry umbrellas, you should not wear like slippers and walk. And also, not only these outer things, the oil bath, the dressing, taking the umbrella and walking, you should also avoid kamam, krodam, lobam, nardanam, geetavadanam. So avoid the desire, anger, greedy, dancing, singing. If you go now, every TV station, there will be only youngsters who will be either dancing or singing. Exactly opposite of what Ramanuspati. You could any TV, KTV, Sun TV, Jaya TV, there will be one show where either the kids are dancing or kids are singing and they get prizes for that. But exactly it is that's what you have to avoid, Manu is telling in this sloka. So now he's listing all the don'ts. He tells the don'ts. Now he continuing still the don'ts. Dyudam cha janavadam cha parivadam tata andrutam strinam cha prekshna alambam upagatam parasya cha. Dyutam cha janavadam cha parivadam tata andrutam strinam cha prekshna alambam upagatam parasya cha. So it says dyutam is gambling. So avoid gambling. Janavadam, Parivadam. So Janavadam means just quarreling, arguing for people for everything. Parivadam is gossiping. So one is quarreling, one is gossiping. So he says the brahmachari should avoid gambling, quarreling, gossiping. Tata andrutam. Andrutam means speaking the lie, like, telling lies and, false things. Avoid those things. Stri namja prekshna alambam. You should not even look at stris or touch them or, hug them. Stri namja prekshna means looking at them. Alambam means hugging them. You should avoid them. Upagatam parasyacha. And also avoid any kind of difficulties for others. So you should, try to, even if he doesn't help them, you should know, there's a paramari, Udevi Sarada Ubadram Pannada. He says Ubadram Pannada. That means Ubadram Pannada means avoid doing harm for others or causing difficulty for others. So these are again the don'ts which Manu keeps listing for the brahmachari. Sloka number 180. Ekah Shayita Sarvatra Na Retah Skandayet Kochite Kamadi Skandayen Reto Hinasti Vratamatmanaha. Ekah Shayita Sarvatra Na Retah Skandayet Kochite Kamadi Skandayen Reto Hinasti Vratamatmanaha. So it says about the young boys losing their semen, the sexual fluid. He will give when sometimes it happens accidentally. He's okay with that. He will tell something about it later. But basically, if they keep thinking about like sexual things all the time and they lose their semen because of that thinking or acting, for him, letting out of the semen is hinasti vratamatmana, means it destroys all the vratams what he has done. So basically, he says because of kama or thinking of sexual things and losing the fluid, if that happens because of that for a brahmachari, it destroys his vratam. There is also a prayachitam for it, but that is given more detail. The next one he says for accidental. Swapne siktva brahmachari dvijam shukram akamataham snatva arkam archayitva trihi punarma mitrucham japet. Swapne siktva brahmachari dvijaha shukram akamatah snatva arkam archayitva trihi punarma mitrucham japet. So he says, for somebody who loses it in the dream, for that brahmachari, shukram akamatah, which is without any sexual intention. So akamatah, kamata is all desires, akamata means without desires. If that happens, snatva arkam archayitva. So next day he has to take a bath. Arkam means Arka is Surya. If you look at one of the names of Lord Surya is Arka will come. Arka means is to worship Surya specifically. And then Trihi Punarma. There is a rig in the Vedas which begins with Punarma. I'm not a Vedic scholar in that aspect, but the Vedic scholar there is a rig which is called Punarma, which begins with Punarma 3 times. You should use that, the Punarma Vedic ritual. 3 times he should chant it. That will then give him the relief or the whatever the small sin comes because of that. So that is the thing he mentions there. Next, sloka number 182. Udakumbam Shumanaso Goshakrin Mrittika Kushan Aharet Yavadyani Baikshyam Cha Ahar Charet. Udakumbam Sumanaso Goshakrit Mrittikat Kushan Aharet Yavadyani Baikshyam Aharet Yavad Artani Baikshyam Cha Ahar Charet. So he says, now he comes back again what to do. So about 5-6 slokas he said what not to do, and he's again coming back what to do. Udakumbam Sumanaso Goshakrit Mrittika Kushan means the water in a vessel, nice smelling flowers. Goshakrit means from the cow, which is the cow dung and other things which you can get from the cow, which will be used for the yajnas. Mrittika means some earth, and Kushan means a darba. So these are all the disciple Aharet Yavad Artani means to whatever extent the guru needs them. Let's say the guru is doing a big yajna, then he might need more of the Kushan and other things. So depending upon the needs of the guru, as the needs are, you should give more or less all these things: the water in the vessel, the flowers, the cow products, the earth, the soil, and also the Kushan. So because depending upon what yajna or puja are doing, the amount you need is less or more of these. So it says it gives you flexibility. Depending upon what the guru needs, you can give more or less of these things every day. Bhaikshyam cha ahar charet. Bhaikshyam means bhiksha here. For his food, ahar means every day he has to go for bhiksha. So after collecting all these things for the guru according to the needs, then he has to go for bhiksha every day. That's what it says, sloka number 182. Then sloka 183. Deva yajnaihi ahinanam prashastanam swakarmasu brahmacharya hared bhaikshyam grihebhya prayato anvaham. Veda yajna ahinanam prashastanam swakarmasu brahmacharya hared bhaikshyam grihebhya prayato anvaham. So it says Veda yajna ahinana means Veda chanting and doing the yajnas. Ahinana means those who are bereft of that. You should avoid those houses. So you should go to the people who are not avoiding, is giving it like a negative statement. You should go to the houses for people who are not avoiding the Vedas and the yajnas. So basically, directly telling, only you should go to the house where the Vedic chanting and the yajnas are happening. Only, and then Prashastanam, so Karmashu means who are very famous because of their good deeds. Those people are very famous because of the good deeds they have done. Only for those houses you should go and get the bhiksha, the brahmacharya hared bhaikshyam grihebhya. So you should make an effort every day to go to only those people's house. After taking a bath, you should get bhiksha from those people, because you know the importance of food. There is a lot of stories which will come on our Puranas and Gurus, where how eating the sattvic food is the most important thing for the spiritual growth. Today in the Guru Purnima, there was a lecture on Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara states this to Narada, a very famous statement in the Chandogya Upanishad. Bhuma Vidya, the 7th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad is called Bhuma Vidya. And Sanat Kumara is teaching Narada Maharishi on how to attain the infinite. Bhuma means infinite, plenum, the biggest, how to attain it. Is teaching Narada Maharishi in that. And actually the last statement will say, Ahara smritihi dhruva smritihi, means if you are controlling your food, your mind will get growth. Only if your mind grows well and your intellect can grasp certain things, will attain Brahman. So it will actually connect that. And you want this particular one line. If you read Ramanujacharya Bhashya, he has given so much explanation for just this one line. This one line of Brahma, this Sattva, how to eat sattvic food. Ramanuja gives even more importance to Adi Shankara if you read Ramanuja Bhashyas on the importance of food. So that is why Manu is, everything comes from Manu again. Manu is taken from the Vedas, the importance of getting food from the right people. Then sloka number 184. Guroho kulena bhiksheta na nyati kulabandushu alabe tva anyagehanam purvam vivarjayet. Guroho kulena bhiksheta na nyati kulabandushu alabe tva anyagehanam purvam vivarjayet. So he tells again, in the first line he said, go to the houses where there is Veda and Yajna chanting. Now he is giving some specifics. So the Sishya should not first go to his own Guru's house to get Bhiksha. Next, he should not go to his Guru's close relatives. Very close relatives, Guru's own brother or Guru's own sister, like they live in the same place. Very close relatives of the Guru, he should not go. Na Nyati Kulabandushu means his own maternal and paternal relatives. So let's say his own uncle or Chittappa lives in the same place, he should not go to those places. So he's telling these three places he should avoid. Even if they are of very good character, he should not go to his own Guru's house or the very close relatives of the Guru or his own maternal and paternal relationship. But then Manu adds it, Alabe tva anyagehanam. But if the whole village is only with Guru relations and your own relations, then Puram Vivarjayet means he can go to his maternal paternal relations. If there is no maternal paternal relations, he can go to Guru's relations. And only when Guru's relations are not there, he can go to his own Guru's house. So he says you have to use the reverse order. The Shishya can go and get food from those people. So he says these are the things you should avoid, but sometimes it is not possible to avoid because the whole village is only of the same relatives. Then he says you should follow this rule. Sloka number 185. Sarvam va api charet gramam purvoktanam asambhave niyamya prayato vacham abhishastamstu varjayet. Sarvam vapi charet gramam purvoktanam asambhave niyamya prayato vacham abhishastamstu varjayet. So again he says if you cannot get, if you have only your close relatives and other things, it's no problem. You can go through the whole village. He says, Babi Charit Gramam, you can tour your whole village to get your Bhiksha. If the Purvoktanam Asambhave, if all the criteria which I mentioned before, Asambhave means they're not existing, all the criteria which I mentioned, if they're not existing, then you're eligible to go through the whole village and get it. But he has one more criteria. The student should be still well controlled because in his character, and he should avoid Vacham Abhishastamsta Varjayet means people with bad qualities at any cost, he should avoid it. So again, the importance of not getting food from the bad people or the people who don't have the, the anushtanas and things like that. So that is, he says, he can still go to, he's allowed to go anywhere in the village to get the food. He gives him the liberty. But even in that case, he should avoid people who have bad qualities or who are not, following all the rules and regulations. So I will tell one more sloka and I will stop here, and then Padmanabhanji can take over because it is also the continuation of that. Duradahatya samidaham sannidadyat vihayasi sayam praktascha juhuyat tabi agnir atandritah. Duradahatya samidaha sannidadyat vihayasi sayam praktascha juhuyat tabi agnim atandritah. So he says, he comes back to Sanatana again. You should get the samits from a distant place. So he said, don't get it from your own village. Go to outside the village. Go to the particular plant or the tree. Collect the samits from there. The arasamaram or whatever it is according to the homa you do, and then you have to bring it home and you should dry them. Don't put them in the floor. Have a cloth or something. Dry those samits because those samits which have fallen from the tree might have been wet and other things. Dry them, and with the dried samit, you can do sayam and pratam. Every morning and evening, you have to do the samida danam. So remember, the brahmacharis do samida danam, the grahasthas do aupasanam. So there is still agnikaryam for both morning and evening. So if you are a brahmachari, you should be doing samida danam morning and evening. If you are a grahastha, you should be doing aupasanam morning and evening. None of us do it. That's another point. But that's what is mentioned here. Tabir agnim atandritaha. You should make sure this agni is kept going on. So that is what he's telling there. So I'll stop with the sloka number 186 now. And I will let Padmanabhanji continue the NYAYA Shastra. Mangalam Koshalendraya Mahaniya Gunapte Chakravati Tanojaya Sarobhomaya Mangalam Shriya Kantaya Kalyanadhe Ertiram Shri Venkata Nivasaya Srinivasaya Mangalam.
Thank you, Dr. Jambunathan. It was very wonderful and thought-provoking. A lot of things. I think we just need to reinforce ourselves on all these things. Vidaya Hridi Vispesham, Vidaya Guruvandaram, Balanam Sukhabodaya, Kriyate Tarka Sangraha. Let me share my screen. So we were discussing about Anumanam in the previous section. So basically, we are talking about inference. Inference is a critical point, and it is a very talked about area in the NYAYA Shastra. So out of the inference, there were two types of inference where we stopped actually last time. One is called as a Swartha Anumanam, which is for our own understanding, which has a lesser scope with respect to the Shastra, because the other one, Parartha Anumanam, which is very more important, which is where you have to convince others. So the Parartha Anumanam is discussed very heavily. How do you get all this knowledge of the thing that you're talking about? So the sloka that where we finished was Swartha Anumiti Parartha Anumityoho Linga Paramarsha Eva Karanam Tasmat Linga Paramarsho Anumanam. So the Swartha and Anumana Parartha Anumana, there is a reason for that, and that is called as the Linga Paramarsha. So Lingam is called as the reasoning point for the knowledge. So that, and then that reason gets into your inference. So now let us see how these grounds are being defined. The grounds are basically the lingam, or we call it as a reasonable ground or whatever that name is. So lingam trividham, anvaya vetireki, kevalanvayi, kevala vetireki cheti. Anvayena vetireke cha vyaptim idam anvaya vetireki, yata vannau sadhe dhumavatvam. Yatra dhumaha tatra agnihi, yata mahanasaha iti anvaya vyaptihi. Yatra vanni nasti, tatra dhumopi nasti, yata mahahridaha iti vetireka vyaptihi. So this is a longer shlokam, so we'll just diverge into smaller pieces and understand. So the lingam is what we start, the grounds or the reason. So the lingam consists of three types, lingam, trividham. So what are those trividham? They're called as Anvaya Vetireki, Kevala Anvayi, and Kevala Vetireki. So in the Anvaya Vetireki means what is Anvaya and what is Vetireki is what we need to understand. The Anvaya is basically using an example or using a positive relationship. We explain the reasoning, what is happening behind the scene. In the Vetireki philosophy, what happens is you're explaining through a negative proposition. So there are two things. The Anvaya is a positive explanation, and the negative explanation is a Vetireki. So you can explain a situation through both positive and negative. So that is called as the Anvaya Vetireki. Or you should be able to, you can only explain through only Anvayi, some reasoning. And some reasoning you will be able to explain only through the Vetireki, only through the opposites of it. So those are the three different types of reasoning. So the Anvaya Vetireki expresses both positive and negative propositions. Kevala Anvayi expresses only positive proposition, and Kevala Vetireki expresses only negative proposition. So these are the first two shlokas of this slokam. So Lingam Trividham, Anvaya Vetireki, Kevala Anvayi, Kevala Vetireki, Cheti. So now let's start with what is this first one? What do we call it as the Anvaya Vetireki? So in the Anvaya Vetireki reasoning, in the Anvaya Vetireki Lingam, we have both Anvaya and Vetireki. So basically you can explain a philosophy using both an example as well as a non-example. So how does that work? So Anvaya Vetirekena cha vyaptim idam Anvaya Vetireki. So you can do both using Anvaya and the Vetireki. Yata Vanni sadhe dhumavatvam. Vannav sadhe dhumavatvam. So the fire is established based on the smoke. So how do you say that? Yatra dhumaha tatra agnihi. So whenever there is a smoke, there is a fire. Like yata mahanasaha, like a kitchen. Iti anvaya vyapti. So you're using a like as an example, and to establish the vyapti is the relationship that is being established there. So you establish the relationship between the fire and the smoke using a positive relationship, like a kitchen where the fire is happening, where you see a fire. We know that in the kitchen there is smoke and fire, that they exist in invariable relationship. Similarly, that to be proved fire is existing based on the smoke that we are seeing it. So that's the first part of the Anvaya Vyapti. That's the example of the Anvaya portion of it. The same fire also can be explained in a different way. So, yatra vannihi nasti, tatra dhumopi nasti, yata mahahridaha, iti vetireka vyaptihi. So now, if you look at a lake, right? I mean, the lake will not have smoke, right? The lake does not have smoke. So then we can easily conclude that the fire is not there. So basically that is also explaining the absence of fire. So now we are able to explain the absence of fire in the mahahridaha, in the lake, because there is no smoke and there is no fire that is over there. This becomes, when you say with a negative proposition, that becomes a Vetireka Vyaptihi. So the relationship between the fire and the smoke can be explained using a positive relationship or a negative relationship. So basically the statement is, whenever there is a hetu, whenever there is a reason, there is a sadhyam. That's a new word again. We are going to see sadhyam later. Sadhyam is the item that needs to be proved. That is where the doubt happens. So, right, we need to prove that there is fire. So that becomes a sadhyam, that needs to be proved. And when you explain through a positive relationship, it becomes an Anvaya Vetireki. And when you try to explain through a negative relationship, saying that, okay, there is the lake there, so there is no smoke, there is no fire. So when you say no, it becomes a Vetireka Vyaptihi. So when there is no sadhyam, when there is no item to be proved, nothing to be proved, no item to be proved, the reasoning is also not going to be there. The reason is smoke. The smoke is a reason. So let's go to the next one, which is the Anvaya Vyapti alone. So first one we saw, which has both Anvaya. We explained both the relationship between fire and smoke through Anvaya Vyapti and Vetireka Vyapti. Here we are going to talk only about the Anvaya Vyapti. So in which ground does it work? Anvaya Matra Vyaptikam Kevala Anvayi Yata Gatha Abhideya Prameyatvat Patavat Atra Prameyatva Abhideyatva Abhideyatvayoho Vetireka Vyaptihi Nasti Sarvasyapi Prameyatvat Abhideyatvacha. So let's go through this now. Anvaya Matra Vyaptikam Kevala Anvayi. So the Kevala Anvayi basically represents, Kevala means just, right? So Kevala Anvayi, just example based or just positive based. So it represents only the positive proposition. So what now? So by looking at a part is expressed in a language. So that is the relationship between the part and part being expressed in a language. So similarly, you look at a cloth. So now the cloth is also expressed by a language. Now we infer that these two are objects of true cognition that you basically see and identify. So the relation, how I see a part and I have my relationship, I also see a cloth and I have a relationship with a cloth. So both are being explained like how I see a part, like how I see a cloth, they are related. So that is why it's only positive. So we just say the example there, and then that relationship exists there. A negative proposition will not happen here because both are expressed by a language. So everything in the world is object of true cognition, that what we see in the world, in the real world, and we express them in a language. When we're talking about objects that we are, where we know, we see through our sense organs, or we feel through our sense organs only. So our scope of understanding is how do you explain this, and how a relationship exists between the object, and how we can define the object to gain its true knowledge. So that is where we are working on. So that's why we're saying all the objects have to be explained. In the other section, which is the Vyatireka Vyapti, so Vyatireka Matra Vyaptikam Kevala Vyatireki. So only the opposite side of this. Vyatireka is opposite. Only based on the negative side, when you're trying to explain something through the negative side, it becomes a Vyatireka Vyapti. Yata Prithivi iterebhyah vidyate gandhatvat. Yat iterebhyah na vidyate na tad gandhavat. Yata jalam na cha iyam tata tasmat na tateti. Atra yad gandhavat tad itara bhinnam iti anvaya drishtantah nasti. Prithivi matrasya pakshatvat. So I just try to split the words so that I don't say it very long. So let me do it again. Vyatireka matra vyaptikam kevala vyatireki. That's only the vyatireka opposite of it. Yata Prithivi iterebhyah. So like Prithivi iterebhyah means like that. So like Prithivi vidyate gandhatvat. So all the earthly objects, right? When one infers an earthly object, it has this smell as a property. So that relationship is there. Yad iterebhyo na bindate na vidyate na tad gandhavat. So sometimes the things which don't have the smell as a property, like jalam, because we know that akasha, prithvi, vayu, jalam, and akasha, vayu, agni, jalam, and prithvi. Except prithvi, none of the other four don't have the property called the gandha, the smell. So now you try to think about jalam, it is not having the smell property, right? Water does not is non-earth, and it does not possess smell. So here what happens is, so you try to explain something as with respect to the property of a earth, try to explain an object. What happens is the whole earth is considered as a paksha here. So you cannot use the same paksha means is one which trying to explain. The whole paksha cannot be used as an example to define a relationship. So that is why the entire earth is considered as a paksha, and it is not possible to earth as an example, since example must be different from the paksha. So when the sadhya, when the item to be proved is in the paksha, then it is not possible to use an example to define the vyapti. You don't have the relationship there, because both of them are in the same location. So kevala vyatireka vyapti is available, is applicable here. So there we apply the vyatireka vyapti as a principle to establish that relationship. So these are the three things. So to recollect, they are kevala anvayi, kevala vyatireki, and anvaya vyatireki. So where you try to explain the grounds of reasoning through positive relationship, kevala anvayi, negative relationship with kevala vyatireki, anvaya vyatireki is both using positive and negative. So these are the three patterns of explaining a relationship. Now we saw a new word here called paksha. So let's go to that. Let's understand what the paksha is. So basically, sandigdha sadhyavan paksha. So when there is a doubt, what you're trying to prove that doubt on a location, and that becomes the paksha. So where the location has to be proved, where the doubt has to be proved, sorry, where the doubt has to be proved, and that location is called paksha. So now, paksha is a location where the sadhya has to be proved is in a doubtful state. So it isn't doubtful. So I have a doubt whether there is fire in the mountain. So that is and I'm trying to prove the sadhya, which is a fire there. And for inferring fire in the mountain using smoke, the mountain becomes a paksha for that, where that location, where that event is happening. Yata dhumavatve hetau parvatah. So for the smoke, the reasoning is the mountain. That mountain becomes a reason of the smoke to be there. Nishchita sadhyavan sapakshaha. So even in the paksha, there are three different types. Basically, the one is just paksha. I mean, just to explain that. And there is a sapaksha and a vipaksha. So what is a sapaksha? Nishchita sadhyavan sapakshaha. So during that paksha that we are trying to explain has, we know that this is for sure it happens. Right, in the mountain having a fire, we don't know whether there's a mountain, and there is always a doubt there. But a kitchen having a fire is something, the smoke coming out of a kitchen due to fire is something we know. So the sapakshaha is a location where the sadhya to be proved is in a doubtless state. In certain, we can understand. So if you hear the word sapaksha, that means we know that particular location, that relationship is already there, and it has been proved that it is there. So in the kitchen having a relationship of fire with smoke is without doubt, we can clarify that that smoke exists there with fire, exists in relationship with fire. Now, the opposite of sapaksha is a vipaksha. So vipaksha is a location where the sadhya to be proved is absent without any doubt. So we know there is no doubt about it, that the item that needs to be proved, the fire, cannot be there, right? So example, the lake is a vipaksha, right? So nishchita sadhyavan, nishchita sadhya abhavavan vipaksha. So the word abhava is used here. So when you have a bhavavan, which is a sapaksha, abhavavan becomes a vipaksha. So when there is a no sadhya there, then sadhya bhava is there. Sorry, I should say this way. Sadhya bhava is there, then it becomes a vipaksha. So in a lake, there is no smoke. Even if you see tins of smoke, the fire cannot be there. So in this case, that becomes a vipaksha state there. So that is how we explain the sapaksha and vipaksha. So paksha, sapaksha, and vipaksha. So these are the three things that we need to understand. So now, to understand a relationship, we find out that we have a relationship called vyapti, and then we have a hetu. A hetu means a reason. The reason is what based on the reason only we are trying to infer. So that is the most critical point, right? So we need to understand the hetu, and the hetu has to be very clearly and specifically mentioned. And if the hetu has some doubts or some fallacies, or we call it, or some false guidance, if the hetu proves to a false guidance, then that becomes a hetva abhasa. So then that becomes a problem there. So that is so when you try to understand an object and you try to go to the reason, and there are 5 different types of fallacies that can occur, which will prevent you from getting the true knowledge. This can happen in a debate situation also, or it can happen in your own understanding also. When you try to prove, and then somebody says that, oh, no, this is false because of this reason. Your logic has no meaning, right? Normally in conversations, we hear that all the time. You don't have a logic to talk about it, right? So that there are a lot of reasons. That is what is called as a hetva abhasa. And let us see how the Shastrakaras have defined this, how the Nyaya Shastra has defined what are the different types of fallacies or unreasonable things that affect the reason, basically. So, savyabhichara viruddha satpratipaksha asiddha abhaditaha pancha hetva abhasa. So there are 5 different hetva abhasa. There is 5 different types of fallacies that can prevent us from gaining a true knowledge. So savyabhichara is the first one. Savyabhichara is the first one. And viruddha is the second one. And satpratipaksha is the third one. Asiddha is the fourth one. Bhaditaha is the fifth one. So these are the 5 different types of hetva abhasas, and we have subtypes under them. So we'll see each one of them as we move forward. So to explain that, in the good grounds, the true knowledge of the sadhya is obtained. Sadhetu possesses invariable relationship with the sadhya. If you have a good reasoning, it has an invariable relationship with the point to be proved. Sadhya means the item to be proved or the point to be proved. If the hetu does not provide a relationship with the sadhya, then it becomes a false ground. That is the proper definition. So when we say that The hetu, that's a relation. The exact definition is the hetu has no way to provide a relationship with the item that you are trying to prove. The reason has no relationship with the item to be proved. Then it becomes a false ground. It becomes a fallacy. So we call it as a 5 different fallacies. Savya Bichara. The Savya Bichara talks about going astray. It suffers from inconsistency. So we'll see a lot of inconsistencies. So even when we are in our own conversation, somebody is trying to convince you, you can say that, oh, your conversation is inconsistent. I mean, that's a very, very normal that happens in any discussions. Definitely, you'll see arguments that are happening in television channels. You can always see that the inconsistencies are happening. One guy is saying something, his own story, another guy is saying his own story. All these things are happening. All these are inconsistent examples. And some of them, no logic, right? So we always say that whatever you're talking is no logic. This is a very critical thing. Viruddha is an opposite. So opposite, you're trying to do something which is really totally opposite to what you're trying to explain. So that is a Viruddha. Satpratipaksha becomes a parallel counter argument. So that also happens sometimes. So you put a parallel counter argument and then it goes in a different direction and it can never be reached. We can never reach a conclusion there for a true knowledge of that object. Then Asiddha is a not established relationship. That also can happen. That is not established, so we cannot talk about it. And contradicted relationships, that's called Baditaha. So that is means affected. Basically, it has that relationship cannot be defined properly. It has its own contradictions. And these are the 5 reasons why can happen. So moving forward, let's see how the Savya Vichara is there. Now the Savya Vichara has been classified into 3 different further classifications. So it is also called as the Anaikantika. So that is the other name of that word that is used. Savya Vichara means the dosha that happens there is also called as the Anaikantika. Satrividaha, Sadharana, Asadharana, Anupasamhari Bhedat. So Savya Vicharo Anaikantika, Satrividaha, Sadharana, Asadharana, Anupasamhari Bhedat. So there are 3 different types of Savya Vichari doshas that are happening, that are trying to understand this relationship can create 3 different types of Savya Vichara doshas. It indicates, basically, Savya Vichara indicates inconsistency or variable relationship, and this will not get us the general, this not generate inferential knowledge. A very good example, I mean, normal, simple example we can tell is inferring smoke from fire. So we know we have been always talking about inferring fire from smoke. So inferring fire, because fire is a sadhya and smoke is a hetu. That is easy to say. Now we put it opposite. When smoke becomes the sadhya and the fire becomes a hetu. Is it true or is it not true? Is a question. It is not true always, because we can see the smoke, whenever there is fire, we know the smoke always exists. So that relationship is always there. That is a permanent relationship. But whenever there is, whenever there is from the fire, we cannot infer the smoke, because when you heat a metal rod, the metal rod gets heated up, and that has fire in it, but there is no smoke that comes out of it. So that if you take it, the smoke does not exist wherever the fire exists. So if you're trying to infer smoke from fire, because smoke does not always exist where there is fire, fire can remain without smoke, and fire is stated as an asad hetu. So this becomes a invalid reasoning, asad hetu. So it doesn't match there. So the fallacy is called, the fallacy has 3 types. And if we translate it to English, sadharanaha, which is generally inconsistent, asadharanaha, uniquely inconsistent, and anupasamhari, that is, which is inconclusive. So those 3 are the savya vichara doshas. So let's start from the first one. Tatra sadhya abhavad vrittihi sadharana anaikantikah. Sadharanaha anaikantikah yata parvato vanniman prameyatvat iti prameyatvasya vanni abhavavat vati hride vidyamanatvat. So you're trying to explain the relationship of a smoke in the mountain, right? Tatra sadhya abhavad vrittihi. So in this case, the generally inconsistent, the hetu may be present and the property to be proved is absent. So the property to be proved is fire here. So that is absent. So how will it happen? Sadhya abhavad vrittihi. That's called the sadharana dosha. So how does it happen? if it is argued that the mountain has fire because it has state of being a true cognition. So now you try the mountain, you just say this because I can see the mountain, it has fire. So if you say that, oh, I can see the mountain, so the fire is there. So if you're just blindly saying something like that. So yatha parvato vanniman prameyatvat iti prameyatvasya vanya bhavat. So if you're trying to use your knowledge and you're trying to prove that the mountain has fire without any substantial relationship, without trying to establish a relationship and proving it, because if you do that, then the problem is you can also see a lake and the lake will not have fire, right? So a water body, I mean, Hridaya is a big water body. You look at a big water body and the fire will not be there. So then that becomes a sadharana dosha. So this is a false ground because the object of true cognition is also present in the lake where there is no fire. So that is an example. There are quite a few other examples which are simply to say, so let's say somebody says an animal has a tail, so it should be a lion. So I mean that has no meaning, right? So that lacks a lot of definitions there. So just because having a tail, we cannot say it is a lion. That is a sadharana sabya vichara dosha. Or you see a person walking in the street, then you say, oh, this person knows the whole city. That also we cannot prove. I mean, these are all loose arguments. So you have to have some kind of methodology to come and prove that this person has the knowledge of the city. So like that. Sarva sapaksha vipaksha vyavritah pakshamatra vrittihi asadharanah yata shabdah nityah shabdatvat iti. Shabdatvam hi sarvebhyah nityebhyascha anityebhyascha vyavritam shabdamatra vritti. So in the case of a uniquely inconsistent solution, so that is asadharana vritti, the hetu, the reason, is not going to be present in both the sapaksha and the vipaksha, since hetu will not be here anyway. So there is no hetu there. So when it is argued that sound is eternal because of the generic property of the sound, then it becomes a false ground. So just because sound is eternal and you try to prove sound is eternal because it is the property of the sound which is causing it eternal, right? It is true as long as it is akasha, because in the akasha has sound. Akasha is eternal and the sound is eternal there. Now we also know that sound is present in Vayu, Prithvi, Agni and Jala, all the four other objects. Those four objects are anitya vastus, right? We have seen that they have the paramanus, and the paramanus manifest, and then they come back, and after some time they come back to its non-normal form, and then they manifest. So there is always a cycle of birth and death, and all those things are happening. So that is the anitya vastu. Those four are the anitya vastus. But those four anitya vastus also have sound in them. So we cannot prove by the sound property that sound is eternal, right? We have to prove it through some other mechanism. So this is the sapaksha is also missing, the vipaksha is also missing over there. So that is the sarva sapaksha vipaksha vyavratah asadharana savya vichara dosha. The third one is anvaya vyatireka drishtantarahitah anupasamhari. So in this case, in the case of an inconclusive fallacy, or that is the anupasamhari, means you don't have a conclusive relationship, there's just left it open there. What happens in this situation is, the example that is provided does not support or oppose the case. So you don't have a sapaksha or a vipaksha to explain this relationship. It's totally weird, right? Eta sarvam anityam prameyatvat iti. So now, so from the knowledge, if he says everything is anityam, by doing that, atra sarvasyapi pakshatva drishtantah nasti. So if it is argued that the object is non-eternal because it is understood by true cognition, then everything becomes a paksha, and no example can be used to give anvaya or vitireki, because everything becomes a subject of conclusion. So then with everything you cannot understand everything. So that is the whole reason. So it becomes a very inconclusive way of reasoning. I think with this, I will conclude this section. Srini, if you can play the music and we can stop the recording, that will help us. Nidaya hridi vishvesham vidaya guruvandanam balanam sukhabodaya kriyate tarka sangraha. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very well done. Both of them were good. Srini, go ahead.
Let me unshare my Maybe. Okay.
Srini, we're not hearing music if you are putting it in. Maybe I'm not hearing it.
मंगलम गुरु श्री चंद्रमौलीश्वर के, शक्ति गणपति शारदांबिके शंकराचार्यर के, शक्ति गणपति महागणपति शारदांबिके के, काल भैरवर के, काली दुर्गै के, शूर हनुम मारुति चरणतिके, मल्लिकार्जुनर के, செல்வ ஜனார்தனர் கே, அம்பா பவானி கம்பத கணபதி சண்டி சாமுண்டி கே, ஸ்ரீ கிருஷ்ண பகவான் கே, ஸ்ரீ சக்கரவாசினி கே, சீதாராம லக்ஷ்மண मारुति चरणतिके, विद्यारण्यर के, विद्याशंकर के, वागीश्वरी के, वज्रदेग गरुड़ आंजनेयर के, श्रीवल्ली देव सेना समेत सुब्रमण्यर के, तुंगभद्रै के, श्रृंगनिवासिनी के, श्रृंगेरी पुरिயில் நிலைத்திருக்கும் எங்கள் சாரதாம்பிகை கே, सच्चिदानंद शिव अभिनव नृसिंह भारती के, श्री चंद्रशेखर भारती गुरु सार्वभौमर के, श्री चंद्रशेखर भारती गुरु विद्यातीर्थर के, श्री चंद्रशेखर भारती गुरु भारती तीर्थर के, श्री चंद्रशेखर भारती गुरु विदुशेखर भारती के, मंगलम गुरु श्री चंद्रमौलीश्वर के, शक्ति गणपति शारदांबिके शंकराचार्यर के, शक्ति गणपति महागणपति शारदांबिகை के, ஸ்ருங்கேரி புரியில் நிறைந்திருக்கும் எங்கள் சாரதாம்பிகை கே.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very well done. Both of them were good. Srini, we're not hearing it. Maybe I'm not hearing it.
मंगलम गुरु श्री चंद्रमौलीश्वर के, शक्ति गणपति शारदांबिके शंकराचार्यर के, शक्ति गणपति महागणपति शारदांबिகை के,